Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the 2026 BMW Championship. We're joined by our defending champion, Scottie Scheffler. Scottie, you're coming in off an 8-stroke win last week. You're the number one in the Fedex Cup. Just talk about coming in here this week and getting ready to defend your title.
Yeah. I had a good week last week. Focused a lot, just kind of getting some rest last couple days. The golf course itself seems to be pretty straightforward this week, so did a good job getting some rest. I'll do a little practice this afternoon, continue to get used to the speed of the greens and bunkers and rough and stuff like that. But overall, just focus on rest and in the middle, kind of a big 3-week stretch for us.
This is your seventh consecutive appearance here at the BMW Championship, but I believe it's your first time at Bellerive Country Club. The last time there was a tournament here was 2018 PGA Championship, and I thought you were on the Korn Ferry Tour, but I believe you were playing somewhere else. But you did win an Evans Scholarship tournament on the Korn Ferry Tour the following year. There's obviously a great connection with that at this tournament. Just speak to that a little bit. Yeah,
I think the Evans Scholars is a really cool organization, and I think that's something we're proud to support this week. And like you said, that was my first win as a professional, was on the Korn Ferry Tour. And when the PGA was here, I was probably chasing mini tours at that time, Monday qualifiers and stuff like that. But it's good to be back at the BMW again. If you're playing in this tournament, that means you've had a pretty solid season, and so I'm looking forward to getting out and competing this week on a new golf course.
Well, you've come a long way. We'll take questions. If you have one, just raise your hand and we'll get a microphone to you. We'll start with Dave and then Jack.
Hi, Scottie. Do you care how many shots you win by? Does that impress you at all when you do something like an 8-shot win?
I mean, to impress me, I don't think it really matters if it impresses me or anything like that. But no, I think when you do get a lead and come down the stretch, you do have to kind of like reset your thought process a little bit. You don't want to get lackadaisical out there. And towards the end of last week, I just started trying to keep pushing. When it gets big like that, especially with the trouble on that golf course, there's some more conservative lines that I'll take. Like you look at the drive I hit off 12 and the iron shot I hit into 14. I was playing pretty conservative, but you don't want to just like the guys out here are so good. Any cushion you can have is a good thing. A cushion is not something that's scary. A cushion's a good thing. These guys are really good.
Go ahead, Jack, on the left here.
Hey, Scottie, what was the thing you were looking for that allowed you to move into the new driver last week?
I've never been one to switch into new equipment unless I actually felt that it was better. If it's the same, why would I switch if something's the same? I already have something that's the same that I'm pretty used to. Getting used to new equipment, I think, can always be challenging, but I felt like this driver always, throughout all our testing and when I've put it in play, the spin numbers have always been better, more consistent. It's been a little bit faster. It was just a matter of, hitting it straighter. And I felt like this was a year in which I didn't drive at my best anyways. And so going into 2 weeks at home, I felt like my driver was going to get close to where if it got tested again, it was going to get close to failing. And it'd been in my bag for a long time. So I was like, man, I really need to make sure this backup's in a good spot. And so the backup I was using was the QI4D, and I just put it in the bag a few times last week when I was playing at home, or I guess it's 2 weeks ago now. But I liked what I saw, and so I figured, give it the old college try in Memphis, and it seemed to work out pretty well. But like I said, it feels like it's a bit faster to me, and definitely goes a straight. So I feel like I'm in a good spot.
The head you were using, was that the same one that you switched into at the PGA last year, or have you switched since then?
That's a good question. To be honest with you, I don't even know the answer. Adrian would be the one that knows the answer to those questions. He's the one that keeps track of everything, and he kind of lets me know when it's time to be like, hey, we need to make sure our backup's in a good spot. We're getting close to the threshold. I wish I could remember, but I can't.
Go ahead, Ben, in front here.
Two quick questions, please. One, what has stood out to you from this golf course here?
It's a big golf course. I think this one has a lot more length than last week's course did. Fairways are a bit wider. The greens are really big, but I think some of the areas you play into are going to play pretty small. They have a ton of pitch to them, so you get into the wrong sections of these greens, you're going to have a lot of up and over type challenging putts. And I think fairways is going to be important as well, just because there's certain holes with the length that you have. If I'm not in the fairway, I'm going to have a hard time reaching the green. And then there's also some holes where there's no real area to run the ball up to. So I'm looking at a little bit of a different style test that we saw last week.
And then real quick, bringing in Rory McIlroy here, I'd love to get your take on what impresses you about him?
Well, I mean, he's competed at a high level for such a long time. Rory's a guy that when you look at, when he won his first tournament to where he is now, he's a guy that has just been one of the best players in the world and sustained it for a really, really long time. And he works extremely hard. He's a guy that I always see in the gym, on the practice range. Like, he's always doing the things that he needs to do in order to play well. And, he's definitely a guy that I look up to in a sense, just because of how long he's been able to do it for. It's quite impressive.
All right, come over to Doug. Doug, you ready?
You mentioned last week about your 2 weeks at home and finding something kind of in your hands on the club. I'm just wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on what it is you found, and more to the point, does it take you time sometimes to realize when things are getting just a little bit off from where they were?
I don't really understand the second part of the question, but
Me neither. Work with it.
I'll answer the first part. Yeah, I think sometimes when my swing doesn't feel the way that I like it to feel, I'm always kind of searching for the feel of the club head. I feel like when my hands can feel where the club head is, I can shape the ball and do the things that I want to do. And, as I start to lose that feel, I'm always just trying to gain it back. And so when we were at home, just practicing on the range, I guess something clicked, just the way my hands were fitting on the club. And I kind of, felt where the head was at and started to work the ball from there, and things felt good. And so I just did my best to just kind of get out on the course and start to play. I didn't want to, practice my way out of a good feeling, and just get out there, play and compete, and kind of get a feel for where things are at. And went out and played well, and continued that over the last week.
Let me try again on the second part.
Yeah.
When things start to get a little bit off, how quickly can you notice?
Yeah, I mean,
That was better, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was better. Pretty quick. Yeah, I wish I had more patience, with myself, and I'm sure I can be a little bit of a tyrant at times, but I don't. If things aren't where I feel like they need to be, I have a tendency to get frustrated, and I try not to let it remain that way for very long.
Okay. Paul in the back.
Scottie, wondering the first time, if you recall, when you met Siwoo.
First time I met Siwoo, I have no idea.
First time you kind of really started to get to know him, would that have been when he moved over to Royal Oaks?
Yeah, he asked me, I guess it would have been the beginning of last year. He stopped me in the locker room one day. He's like, "Hey, you remember Royal Oak?" And I was like, "Yeah." Like, "What's up?" And he's like, "Can you help me join?" I was like, "Yeah, of course I can." And it's Royal Oaks, by the way. Call it Royal Oak. But Siwoo's a guy, he's always been so popular in the locker room, and he's really fun to be around. He likes playing. He likes to go out and compete. And it's great to have as part of our games at home, a guy that I see out here week to week. And, he's got, one son. He's a family guy. And, he's really easy guy to be around. He's real popular in the locker room.
I think there was a clip last week, you and Sam talking about there's some hole on Royal Oaks that he just never doesn't hit driver, even if it doesn't fit. Can you tell that story?
Well, there's the 15th hole at Royal Oaks it's not really drivable, but if it gets pretty far downwind, like I can get to the green in two, and like when we played with Gary last week, he can obviously get there. But there's like a little sliver of fairway kind of on the right side of the green where you can run it up. It's maybe 10 yards wide, and Siwoo can land it like probably 10 yards short of the green, and there's water short left, and pretty much every time without fail, he always tries to hit driver. And, he's gotten it in the little sliver of fairway a few times, but that hole's typically a win for me because his drive's not going to end up in a good spot. But he's just so aggressive. He loves just hitting driver.
I think he said he's never beaten you at Royal Oaks. Does that sound right?
I'll let him answer.
Next to you, Paul, and then we'll come to Dan.
Scottie, you mentioned kind of how big this golf course is lengthwise. Today, during the Pro-Am, seemed like you hit a lot of three woods hybrids off the tee. Is that a strategy for the round or just something you were doing today?
I'm trying to think. I probably hit a couple three woods off the tee. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I mean, I hit three wood off of a hole late. Maybe only hit one three wood. But yeah, I think I maybe only hit one three wood. It feels like driver's coming out of the bag a lot. I mean, yeah, there's a few pretty long. I think I maybe hit three wood off of one and three wood off of maybe like six. Mostly just to get the ball in the fairway. Fairway is always important. I like to try and be in the fairway as much as possible. And so, yeah, really depending on how the hole's shaped and what it looks like off the tee. Like, there is some decisions out there. Like, the third hole was still a bit of a decision whether I was going to hit three wood or driver. Sorry, that might have been the second hole. Second hole was still a bit of a decision. Yeah, sorry, still learning the course. Yeah, mostly just trying to get the ball in play. I'd say that's really all it is. Where's the kind of the wider part of the fairway, and is this a longer hole where I need to be more aggressive? Like a couple of the par fours are like 500 yards. You're probably not going to see me take a 3-wood out very often on a 500-yard par four, but some of the shorter ones, leaves you a bit more options.
Okay, we have a few more questions lined up, so we'll go to Dan first.
Scottie, a couple of stats and your reaction to them. The win in Memphis was the 50th time that you've finished first, second, or third in a tournament. I'm curious what that stat means to you, but before you answer, I'll give you the second one. The gold standard on that is Nicklaus. Nicklaus finished first, second, or third 165 times in his career and 46 times in majors. Is that a meaningful stat when you look at a person's career?
I mean, you really challenged me this morning with the numbers. But no, I think, giving yourself consistently chances to win, I think says a lot. I talk a lot about how hard it is and difficult it is to win out here on tour. And, the best way to win tournaments is to give yourself as many opportunities as you can. And so that is nice for me to have some numbers where I'm giving myself opportunities to win. I think that's most important. And, hopefully I'll be able to continue to do that going forward. But I think, the consistency of putting myself in contention week in, week out is something that I'm very proud of.
Okay, Mitchell and then Doug.
Scottie, the par 3-6, I realize you've seen, you've played it maybe once, but what challenge does that hole present? Embarrassing. Scottie.
I heard you.
Yeah. What challenge does a par 3-6 present? I think you just mentioned hitting 3-wood off of that. What makes that so challenging here for you?
Oh, gosh, sorry. I messed up the holes then. It must have been 7 I hit 3-wood off of. Today, I think I hit 5-iron on that hole. I mean, it's really long and the green's really small and there's water. Short right. I mean, I can't really elaborate too much on that other than the hole's long and the green's really small and there's water in play. So you got to hit a really, really accurate shot with a long iron there if you're going to want to have a chance for birdie. And, really that's a hole, each day where I feel like par walking off is going to be a pretty good score.
Okay, 2 more. We'll go Doug and then Adam.
Been a lot of talk in the last a couple of weeks or whatever that you're on the cusp of overtaking Tiger in the career earnings. I wonder if you could share any thoughts you could possibly cobble together. Meaning, I don't have a great question, but it's interesting. He's held it for 26 years, and I understand purses have gone up and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, that has a lot to do with the purses and all that. I'm not really too close to him, I think, in terms of career wins.
Getting there.
What am I, like a fourth of the way there now? Something like that. No, I mean, Tiger did a lot for the game of golf, and he put us in a position where we're able to earn some pretty good stuff financially, and so that's something we're very grateful for. Tiger's contributions to the game, I think when you look at where the purses were at before he came out on tour to where they're at now is a pretty stark difference, and we're very thankful for his contributions to the game, and hopefully we'll see him back out here competing again soon.
There's been stories from players over the years about their very first check or the first time they checked their account, and you've said repeatedly that money's not a big issue with you, but was there ever a time early days, your first cut you made as a pro?
I mean, not really. I signed with Nike right when I got out of school and was able to give me some money that I needed going forward to where I didn't have to worry about like a place I was going to stay or like can I afford these Monday qualifiers, Q school, stuff like that. Nike was a partner of mine growing up, and they were a partner right from the beginning when I turned pro. And I was able to have some freedom when I came to flying across the country doing Monday qualifiers, and fighting for your career and your job is not an easy thing to do. And so I was in a position early on where I was able to have a little bit of financial freedom. And, like Mark said, when I turned pro in 2018, I spent most of that time. I had a start in Memphis. I didn't play that great, but I made the cut. I was able to make a bit of money. But after that, you lose a lot trying to make it in this game, flying across the country, playing Monday qualifiers, shooting 64 and then turning around and coming home and not qualifying. Those things hurt. And I don't remember my first check or anything like that, but
I do.
You do? What was it?
25.
25? That's good.
And change.
No, but I mean, I just remember early on in my career just trying to find my place in the game, and I have some fun memories of just driving around the country playing golf tournaments. I think Doc Redman and I were driving around the Midwest for a few weeks playing Monday qualifiers and mini tour events. I went with a buddy from Dallas that I grew up with. We went and played Q school in Mississippi, drove 10 hours in the car, and when I I played, I think, 3 mini tour events, and a couple of them I traveled with my mattress pad in my car because I could sleep on the floor. It was going to be more comfortable than the hotel bed. So I just slept in the floor at the hotel rooms. And I think it was maybe I think we were in Lufkin, Texas. I stayed at this house, and I just brought my mattress pad. I just slept on the ground. It was just easier. I knew it was going to be a quality bed, and just little stuff like that, like good memories and fun stuff, and good buddies I still have from this day that I've met just from playing golf.
Who paid for gas when you and Doc drove?
I think it was me. Doc and I actually, we had to, I think my car was running out of oil. It was the old Yukon. I literally had to call my dad because my dad is Mr. Fix-It, so I never had to fix anything growing up, but we were somewhere in, like, Nebraska, and I had to call him and be like, hey, Dad, like, this is embarrassing, but can you help me figure out how to, like, check the oil in this car? Like, it says it's run out of oil, but everything's fine. Like, where is it in this car? It was easier than me trying to Google it in the middle of nowhere. I was like, I'll just call my dad. He'll help us figure it out. But fortunately, now I know how to check the oil.
Congratulations.
All right, last one from Adam, and then we're done.
Scottie, are there any changes coming to the tour in 28 that you voiced some concern about?
I think if it was any concerns that I had, I'll probably just go directly with those. But I like the direction that the tour's headed. Getting the best players competing against each other more often is, I think, what everybody wants for us as players. That's what we want. I assume you guys in the media, that's what you would want to see. I assume that's what the fans want as well. And I think that's the direction that we're heading, and making things a bit simpler in terms of who's going to be at what tournament at what time. And golf has always been a difficult game to rank when you're not playing head-to-head. And so getting the best players playing head-to-head more often than not in a proper golf tournament, I think is the best way to do things.
Along those lines, there's chatter again about LIV maybe not having as many events next year, and some of the guys wanting to come back. Would you be welcoming to the tour, offering the same opportunity that Brooks took up this year?
Yeah, I think, like when we talk about the best players, LIV has a few players that are really good. I think the depth that we have on our tour is a bit unmatched, but I think when you look at the higher levels of LIV golf, there's definitely some players that would provide, a lot of value to the tour, and guys that I love competing against as well. And so I think going forward, there obviously has to be, I think, some sort of penalties. What those are, I'll let Roll Up and all those guys figure it out. We have great leadership within the tour now, but I think having those guys come back and competing with whatever happens with LIV, whether those guys want to leave or, you got to ask them. But I think for me, being able to compete against the best players in the world, there's certainly some guys on that tour that can compete out here. And, I look forward to the chance to compete with them more often.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.